Hi, everybody. It's Marjorie Waldo with Culture Under Fire. Today, our topic is what board service really means in the arts. It's an extremely important topic, and I would say more now than ever. Let me read you what my team wrote for us. What does it actually take to help guide a cultural organization through growth, uncertainty, and change? In this episode, I'm sitting down with a couple of Arts Garage board members to explore their role of leadership in shaping a cultural institution. And dealing with me would probably be part of that relationship and responsibility. Beyond meetings and oversight, board service calls for advocacy, responsibility, and a belief in what the arts can do for a community. Together, we're going to discuss what drew them to this work, because they do it for free, what the public rarely sees behind the scenes, but not too much. We don't want it to give away too much. And why strong board leadership matters at a time when arts organizations are being asked to do more than ever. So Elise Rubenstein and Steve Rappaport, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Marjorie.
I'm
Thanks for
glad you're
having
here.
us.
So let me brag on you a minute before I start with some questions. So let's start with you, Steve. You joined the Arts Garage board in 2024, and you now are our board chair. You have your bachelor's in political science, magna cum laude, smarty pants, from the University of Florida, and your JD, your Juris
Doctorate.
Juris Doctorate, from Georgetown.
Yes.
That's a pretty impressive university. You are an equity partner at Sachs and Kaplan, the law firm in Boca. You started there in 2002.
Correct.
That's a long time. That's pretty cool.
It's been a while.
You're a committed guy. And you've served as a board member and committee chair with the Palm Beach County Fair Housing and Equal Employment Authority and AVDA, the Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse. And I believe there are other things you've done as well. And now Arts Garage.
Now Arts Garage.
So thanks for sharing that with us. Did I miss anything big that you need to brag about so that
No, I think you covered
the
well. Yeah.
highlights? I could spend a day just talking about your resumes, both of you. Elise Rubenstein joined the Arts Garage board in 2023 and is our current vice chair. In New York, you were a graphic designer. And do you know, I didn't know that.
I worked for a graphic design agency.
You were not a graphic designer.
No, I was an account executive and enjoyed I was the go-between between the designers and my clients.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's very cool.
loved
Yeah.
it.
But your father is an artist.
Yes.
And you were surrounded by arts growing
Yes.
up, which is probably
Yes.
where your love of the arts came from. Like,
Yes.
I know Steve plays guitar.
A
little?
I dabble a little.
You dabble?
Yes, I dabble.
Okay. Do you paint or do you do any musical instruments or anything?
My sister got all of the talent in her hands.
Okay.
I'm creative in other ways.
Okay.
It comes out definitely in other ways.
Okay. That's very cool. Elise is a longtime philanthropist, and she started in Baltimore on the board of the Jewish Community Center, where you served for 15 years, and you were with the Jewish Women's Giving Foundation. You and your husband are both supporters of the Freeman Stage in Delaware, so your love for the arts extends to your other home.
Yes.
Steve lives in this area full-time. Elise is here about half the year and in Delaware the other half, right?
Yes.
So it's an interesting thing because when I first started at Arts Garage, this is my 10th year, which is unbelievable. All of our board meetings and committee meetings were in person. And now after the pandemic, we have mastered the art of Zooming. And so it works very well with many of our board members who either travel a lot or live part-time in other states. So we don't miss a beat, even though you might be in another place. We had somebody join from a cruise ship committee meeting yesterday. So it happens all the time. Okay, so you ready to talk?
Sure.
It's a really big commitment to join the board of a not-for-profit. Most not-for-profits charge you to be on the board. We do as well. And you work for free. You receive no bonuses at the end of the year. And you have all served on multiple not-for-profit boards. What is it, not necessarily in the arts, but what was it that made you want to invest yourself and work with organizations in the capacity of a board member?
I think this is more different than anything else that I've done, either in boards or in my career. I'm a huge lover of music. I'm a huge concert goer. I mean, live music is, since I was a kid and used to watch concert videos with my father, has been a huge part of my life. So I've served on a lot of boards. I do a lot of stuff with the bar associations and with the community association world, but having an opportunity to do something that's totally different from anything that I do, it makes me kind of force myself out of the usual stuff that I deal with, and is something that I'm so passionate about. I think that's kind of pushed me to really
that
explore
brought you
this.
to us. Yeah. Why nonprofits though? Because you actually invited me to a luncheon with AVDA. And again, that's the Aid for Victims of Domestic Abuse organization. They do amazing work and provide support to women and children that would otherwise be in completely untenable situations. Why nonprofit support? What you just have a big heart?
Well, I think it's just that's where people need things the most. I think, and again, because I think I spent so much time, in the first quarter century of my career involved in the industry or in generating business or doing things that were more profit focused. I think forcing myself to step out of that and do something that's really more for the common good, and again, in something that I have a passion about, I think that's what's kind of driven it for me.
I think that's really cool. Elise?
Well, when I was working in New York, I loved being in a creative environment.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved to Baltimore, my husband, we talked about me not working, and that was really difficult for me. So I found philanthropy, and it was my way of getting involved in my new community, getting involved in the Jewish community. I started my Jewish journey at that time, and it was something that I could do that felt meaningful, creative. It used all of my skills and my leadership skills, which were really well developed doing that kind of work. And the reason why is, personally, I feel very fortunate. I have a lot of energy and a lot of experience, and it feels amazing to give back. I was very lucky through my work in the Jewish community that I was able to get involved with the arts, and that was very rewarding. I was also a board member of the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, and it was very similar to what you do, giving children an opportunity to see the arts when normally they would not. Right. Title IX kids coming in on buses, we would raise money for that. It all feels very important. It just feels like important work, and I always call my philanthropy my work.
It's so funny. I've had a couple of episodes with donors, and I think there's a commonality there where you reach a certain point in your life where you have the time or are willing to make the time to participate, and it's this really good feeling to give back to your community. And if you choose an organization like the ones you've both worked with and Arts Garage, you're working for an organization that really believes in community and lets that be one of the pillars of everything that we do, really, is community. So I think it's awesome. I think it's great. How did you find out about Arts Garage? I think you found out about Arts Garage from one of our other board members.
Yeah, so one of our board members, Mark, is who is involved in a marketing company. It's the marketing company that actually does the work for our firm.
Okay.
So I met him, and we were just kind of chatting one time about what we each do outside of the office, and he mentioned it, and I went on the website and I saw the board, and I said, well, I'd love to get involved. And he said, well, have you ever been to a show? And I said, well, actually, no, I haven't. He said, well, you really can't jump into something unless you know what it's all about and see it. And I said, well, let's get a couple shows together. Let me see what it's all about, and fell in love with it from minute one.
Yeah, you were ready as soon as I met you, for sure. Yeah. You were ready. And I was curious as to whether you'd been to shows before.
Right.
I think your story's slightly different. Who introduced you? Was it Chuck?
Jack. It was Jack and Chuck.
Chuck
Chuck brought us to the Arts Garage for a performance.
Right.
And then Jack asked me to join the board. And I thought, with all of my arts background, that it would be a great fit for me. And also, we just became Florida residents. And I felt it very important to join a board in town. I wanted to become a part of my community.
Right.
And as soon as I met you, I knew that that we were going to do great things together.
Yeah, we clicked for sure.
And you're an amazing leader. So
Well, appreciate
I'm learning
it.
from you.
Appreciate it. Right back at you. So it's easy when you say you're the president and CEO, but I rely on the board a lot to inform many things that we're working on, especially now when you're looking at advocacy and making sure that we're staying sustainable, that we are a sustainable organization. So I learn lots from the board and from your various experiences. Okay, so over the last 15 years, which is Arts Garage is celebrating its 15th anniversary in April, which is amazing. And I've been there for 10 of those. The organization has changed significantly. If you're listening to the podcast or watching the podcast, you may not know that we were in pretty dire straits after our first 5 years. We owed a lot of money to a lot of people. We had a reputation issue that we had to deal with, and we needed to kind of restructure the organization. Without the board of directors, we would have never been able to accomplish that. Like, it was very instrumental. And it's not just mission and vision, which it is, fundraising, but it's also what you're talking about. You both were introduced to the organization by a current, at that time, board member. That's a lot of what you guys do. Can you give an example of where you've exposed someone who didn't know about Arts Garage to the place?
Every season, I take a look at the calendar and I pick a show and invite all of my friends. And they will ask me at the beginning of the season, when are we going to the Arts Garage? What are we seeing?
That's awesome.
So in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm taking a group to see Abamania.
Right.
You know, every group has their niche.
Yes.
And last year we went to see Motown.
Right.
And my friends really look forward to coming and visiting and supporting Arts Garage.
I think that's awesome. And I know you've brought people to the shows too.
I've brought a few friends to the shows, and maybe selfishly, I've tried to identify people that I think maybe would be people that would also be good for this, for the organization, not just would be great patrons and would like to come back and see a show, but maybe future board members or future donors or somebody that can really get as passionate and interested and help grow even further. So I've tried to keep an eye on that and try to introduce people in my life that I think are similar to me, but also maybe even have more means or more ability to get involved and so forth.
And I think it's important. People, if you own a business, for profit or not for profit, you know the value of marketing and PR, right? But a lot of what Arts Garage has accomplished has been word of mouth, grassroots, exactly what you're describing, how you were introduced to the organization or how you introduce other people to the organization. I think it's a really powerful tool, and one that is beautifully used by the board of directors at Arts Garage. Our volunteers, our team, we all do it, but I think it's really important at the board level. And we've got a group of 11 board members, active board members, and we've got 4 legacy board members, and they all do the same thing all the time. It's a beautiful thing to watch. So there's pressure in your role because, like when you take the leadership role in an organization, people hear Arts Garage that have been in Delray for a long time and they see my face, right? Because I've been there for a decade. And that's typical of a small business in particular, you imagine, but even large business. You think Amazon, who do you see? You think Google, who do you see? You know those names, you know those faces. So it happens to board members too. And especially when you look back at our turnaround story, our community stakeholders are counting on the board to not let that situation happen again at our place or any other board for any other non-for-profit, right? You provide a tremendous amount of visioning and oversight.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of pressure. How do you find your place in that? I think I know, right? I think I know what we've built, but what's your take on that? How do you manage the responsibility?
I mean, it's an interesting question because, I'm sitting here as the fairly new board chair, but fairly new board member. I haven't been here 10 years or even 5 years. It's only been a few years. And when this first happened, I kind of took a step back and thought, well, this seems a little weird. I've been here about a day and a half, and now all of a sudden I'm expected to be board chair. But I think that can also be a strength because it's somebody new. It's somebody that's not stuck in what's been done for the last 10 years. It's somebody that maybe can help the group pivot or just think outside the box or do something that hasn't been done. So, I think I find my place as sort of the outsider and the insider at the same time, maybe,
right.
And somebody that, because I'm very soft-spoken too, I'm fairly quiet. I tend to spend a lot of time in our meetings just listening.
Right.
And I think that may be my role, is to just sort of take everything in as the new person and then kind of be able to give thoughts and advice and help guide based on my experience and what I think is right, but not maybe because I haven't been around for the last 10 years, not jumping out right away and saying what I think should be done because I don't know. And I'm willing to admit when I don't know what I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I think that can be a strength. And I think being sort of the quiet guy in the background and just sort of listening
right.
to everybody else and then jumping in, I think is actually a strength. And I think that's where I found my role.
I think the other board members see that in you too, because when you meet somebody new, you don't know what their personality style is or how they approach processing new information. And if you're a quiet person, I'm not. I really don't know what that feels like. I never shut up. If you are a quiet person, people aren't sure if you're even paying attention sometimes. They assume that if you're not always animatedly engaged in the conversation, that something's off. And I think the board learned very quickly what your assets were and that you were paying close attention and you were assimilating that information right. along with your experience into ways that would really help us. So I think you're right. What about you?
Well, I think for me, it's a great opportunity for me to utilize my leadership skills. And one of the things that I love about the Arts Garage Board is the group that you've assembled. And the skills that I have are different from someone that's been in town for a while and they know the players. And I find that so interesting to listen to. And yet someone else has different experience in the art world. And what I love as a board, when we come together, the breadth of all of our different experiences, we sort of balance each other out. And I think we help to provide you with the right kind of consult that you're looking for because of our varied backgrounds.
100%.
So it makes it really fun for us too. I think we all genuinely really like and respect each other because
Agreed.
We're all, leadership is not just writing a check, it's showing up. And I think when you send up the flare and you need us and we all come running, we respect that in each other. And I love that.
Me too. I mean, there's a good example. We had something that was kind of urgent to discuss and I sent out an email and within 2 days, we had 2 separate meetings set up by Zoom that nearly everyone, if they weren't on a ship or in another country, was able to attend, 9 out of 11. And the other 2, when they get back into town, we'll sit and catch them up as well. So you're right. You're always there when I need you and when the organization needs you. It's obvious to me that you make it a priority in your lives. And our board has each person on the board has a different story. So some of you still work full time. Some of you are retired. Some of you are very active socially. Some of you travel all the time. Some of you live in another place half the time. Out of all of those 11 people, that doesn't affect at all their commitment to the organization. They're always there. When we need to be together, we're always together. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's something for, if you're considering being a board member, you should know that it means that you're agreeing to consistency and support, not necessarily financial.
Right.
That is included, of course. A big role of any board for a nonprofit is fundraising and development, but it is not the only thing. And I think it's important. I think there are a lot of people in our community that have skills that could benefit our local not-for-profits. And I hope this encourages some people to go to the place they love the most, the place that they really support their work and like it. I'd love it if it was Arts Garage, but it doesn't matter who it is. I know the Spady Museum's work is incredible. The Historical Society, the library, what is the organization? The Sandaway House. Mm-hmm. if you're a nature or science person, or an ocean person, there's all kinds of ways to serve and in many different capacities. All right. So I want to talk briefly about advocacy. And I want to be careful how we talk about it because I'm trying to make sure that this is not a situation where we're having a glass of wine. I wish we were. It's not too early any time of the day. And just chatting and expressing our worries or our concerns or whatever. This is something that's very strategic in its intention, these podcasts, right? But there is currently a need for advocacy for the arts because of legal issues that have arisen from the federal level down to the city level. So it's tricky business, this, to be grateful for the support you have, to not take it for granted, and to plan for what might happen in your future. So how do you process the need to be an advocate for the organization in a pretty, what's the word I want? It's hard to predict what environment we're in. We have some indicators, but you can't know what it's going to be in a couple of years. So how do you view your role as an advocate in the arts?
Well, by trade, I'm a condominium and HOA attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever served on a condo board or been to a condo or an HOA board meeting or membership meeting.
Been to one, never served.
Lots of conflict, right? Lots of conflict, especially in today's world. And I think the root of that is because we don't know how to identify with the other people in the room, or at least recognize that they're one of us. I always tell people when I'm in these meetings, you guys are neighbors. Yes, this is a corporation. Yes, you pay assessments. You have to the rules to live by, but you're also neighbors. It's a strange practice area because you're basically doing corporate law for corporations where everybody lives together, and it's really weird at times.
Right.
But I think we've lost that ability to be empathetic with each other, and I think that's in all society right now. I see it in these meetings, and I see it in this one little niche area. But I think the idea of advocacy, it's not just advocating for a cause. I see it as more advocating for the idea that we can actually disagree about a cause, but still sit in the same room and talk about it without hating each other, or without calling each other names, or without cutting off the other person's ability to see things a different way. I think that's where we have the biggest problem right now. And I see that in the association world, but I see it in the arts and in culture. And I like to view my role as somebody that can just get people together in a room and say, hey, you believe this person believes that. You can't stand each other's beliefs, but maybe we can get a glass of wine together and just at least treat each other like human beings who have the right to have differing opinions and talk to each other. I
think there's a big thing that's happened with social media, and I'm on social media a lot. I love social media, but it provides an anonymity that you don't have here. You're going to hear what I say. You're going to see my face. You're going to see if I'm smiling and being funny or whether I'm being serious and hurtful. And when you're behind a screen, you can kind of hide behind that screen and say things you might never say in person to somebody else. And I do think that's one of the sad things about one of the other things. You can go back and look at your kids' photos for the last 1,500 years and find all those videos of when they were cute. It's nice to connect with friends from far away, all that. I'm not saying social media is a bad thing, but it does allow us to forget human decency a little bit.
Absolutely.
If we choose to go down that path. Yep. Agreed. What do you think?
Well, I think even within our own personal groups, that the way the world is right now, there's a bit of a divide.
Yes.
There are things we don't discuss.
Yep, absolutely.
There are just things we do not discuss. And my feeling, and you and I have talked about this before, the arts has always created the bridge. The arts, when you walk into Arts Garage, you leave it all at the door, and we come in and we want to be entertained. And I think a lot of times social media, not so much, but like when you turn on the television, sometimes you just want to be entertained, and sometimes it takes that turn that you weren't anticipating.
Right.
But when you walk into Arts Garage, it is 100% joy. It is about being entertained. It's about the bridge that we're all looking for, where we can come together and agree and enjoy and leave all that other stuff behind. So to me, when I ask my friends or tell people that I'm a board member, to me, it's just putting it out into the universe that I believe in the arts and that this is the way I'm advocating for the organization that I believe in.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't have to be more than that, right?
Right.
It just needs to be, this is what I strongly support.
Right.
I support the arts. I show up for the board.
Right.
I invite my friends. And sometimes it doesn't need to be more than that.
Agreed. And I think the thing I like so much, I started talking about the arts being able to bridge every gap in our culture years ago. I really believe that. And the best evidence of that is to come to a show and watch a table of 8 or a table of 6. Maybe you only come with your wife or your husband, and you don't come with friends for that show. And you're sitting with 4 strangers or 6 other strangers. By the end of that night, those people are smiling and chatting and probably sharing some pretzels, right? And it doesn't really matter what their socioeconomic level is, what their political leanings are, who they are racially or ethnically or gender. None of that matters. It all disappears. And you're sharing this common experience that is, I think, so much bigger than just pure entertainment, although that's obviously part of it, right? I think Motowners is a great example because they're an exceptional band. They're really fantastic and they have a huge following locally and people really love them. Sells out over and over. Can do 3 nights in a weekend in season. And when I come to the show and watch, and I love Motown, but it's a little, maybe a decade earlier than what I would have been listening to, right? My parents listened to it and I loved it. I love all music anyway. But you can watch the patrons who are there, and yes, they are being entertained, and yes, they are enjoying that moment, but they're dancing in the aisles, they're smiling at each other, they're singing along with the songs that they haven't heard in a while, and it takes us back to I don't know about y'all, but I can remember if you name a song or we hear one on the radio, I can probably tell you where I was or what, maybe not a specific instance, but the time of my life and the things that were happening to me at that time. Music, theater, comedy, they're all great connectors. They're great connectors.
100%. And so I have no idea who to attribute the quote to, but somebody said that the music you listen to is the soundtrack of your life.
For sure.
And that couldn't be I'll give you an example. I lived in Miami for many years growing up, and we lived through Hurricane Andrew. And we had some damage, and not terrible compared to what happened elsewhere in our surrounding area. But I remember there was maybe a few weeks where the carpeting in my bedroom things were getting very musty because it flooded inside. I can tell you to this day, if I hear November Rain on the radio,
how funny.
I can smell the mustiness of my bedroom in West Kendall during Hurricane Andrew because that song happened to be on the radio a lot around that time. So it's just amazing that you can transport back to a specific moment, a specific time, just from hearing something that was played a lot around that time or that you played or that you really loved.
There's a science to that.
Yep.
There's a significant amount of research that's been done in the last couple of decades about using artist therapy for one of our past board members, Pamela Goffman, was one of the guests on the podcast in an early episode. And she talked about using theater as a form of art therapy. Visual arts are often therapeutic in how they help you center yourself. People leave feeling like they had a good time and that they were entertained and they got their money's worth. But they also cooled down for a minute from what they read in the newspaper, saw online or on TV, or the argument they had with a family member or friend or their spouse, or their concerns about their children or their parents or whatever. It's this respite from something, from a larger world that isn't always easy. All those things I named are universal. We all experience them. It doesn't matter where we're from or who we are. But it surely is a healing moment.
But getting back to your point about advocacy.
Yes.
So everyone reads the newspaper. People are talking about the lack of funding. And I think by coming to the Arts Garage, a small music venue in their town, they feel that they're advocating, they're supporting. I came, I supported, and it's like a vote. I'm voting for Arts Garage. I'm voting for small venue, music, entertainment. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And they feel that too when they leave.
Agreed.
I came and I supported, and this is my way. I don't have to be loud and proud, but I can come here and I can buy my ticket.
Do my part.
And do my part.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. When I do the show intros, and I don't come to the shows as often as I would like because I'm exhausted. I work a very heavy full-time schedule starting very early in the morning, so it's hard to do a 12-hour day or to break myself off my couch on the weekend, right? But when I go, I often do the introduction, and I say how grateful as a nonprofit we are for our stakeholders, the City of Delray Beach, the Cultural Council, the CRA in the past has done monumental work with us and for us, our donors, our board members, and the patrons who purchased a ticket. Because those ticket revenues are how we keep the ball rolling. And it is, in fact, I'd never thought of it in those words, but it is, in fact, a vote that we support what your work is, and we get enough from what we do here that we want to keep it going. And you're right. That's a really good way for people to remind themselves. So if you could say one thing to the community about what we do at Arts Garage that you haven't said, maybe you've already answered what you would choose for this, but is there anything you would tell the community that maybe they wouldn't know about our work that you think is important for them to know?
Well, I can start off by saying that our community needs to know what an amazing leader you are.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Through COVID, through everything that's going on in the news, you are advocating for us every day. And that's extraordinary. And I think all of us as board members hold you in the highest regard with so much respect.
And you share that with me. And that's not always the case. You're very kind in saying that and in the way you treat me, because it shows in your actions. And I'm grateful for that.
And I think the other thing is that our board is very collaborative.
Agreed.
And I guess I mentioned that before, that everybody has a very different skill set that they bring to the table. But I think we have some new board members, and I like what they're bringing to the table, and I like what they have to say, and I like their new thoughts and their fresh approach. Mm-hmm. And I commend you for that also, because you've worked very hard to pick the right people, to put the right thoughts around the table.
Yeah.
And it makes it a truly enriching experience for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I am very proud of our board, historically, but especially now, because I think you're right. I think it's very diverse in thought and experience. And that I think of things like a piece, I'm very visual. So like if you imagine a piece of Swiss cheese, I can't be a whole solid piece of Swiss cheese. I've got gaps in my understanding of the world, of all kinds of things. And if you can fill those gaps in that slice of cheese with people that are skilled and thoughtful, it's wonderful. And you bring new people in who shake it up a little and say things to you that it's kind of what you were talking about, that you're at a place for 10 years like I've been, and you kind of think you know it all about that place. Until somebody says, have you ever thought? And changes the conversation a little. And I think it's very helpful and very meaningful in an organization's growth.
Well, I think most people, I'm sure myself included, I'm sure all of us to some extent, we're kind of stuck in a bubble, and we're sort of just used to what we typically do, where we usually go, what we usually watch. But to answer your question, I think the one thing that I would point out and reiterate about the Arts Garage is it's so unique in terms of not just venue and the people involved, but in terms of the programming. A lot of times when I'm going to a concert, I'm waiting to see if one of my favorite bands is coming somewhere, and then finding out, oh, they're at the Amphitheater in West Palm, or they're at the Guitar Hotel at Hard Rock, and I'm kind of waiting around to see who's coming. This is the type of venue where you're not waiting around to see who's coming. This is where you can go onto the website, check the schedule, and see 7 different things during the week, 6 of which you've never heard of, and be like, oh, wow, I would never have thought I could go to see something like that. So I think it can be more interactive, where people can just be more proactive about the types of shows and things that they want to go see, because you can go to a place that has a little bit of everything and a lot of things that most people have never even. I mean, there are some shows that I've gone to that I would never have even thought of, because I would be just sitting in my bubble waiting to see what's coming to these other venues. But here I can actually go and say, oh, wow, never heard of that, but that sounds amazing. And then go and be surrounded in a room of people that maybe have seen them 10 times, but maybe it's also their first time. And I just think it's an incredible venue, and I would encourage anyone that hasn't been to get tickets and see a show. It's
exceptional, I think, and we work really hard to make sure the calendar of programming does that. I think for me, the thing that I want to make sure and I try to talk about it all the time with invisible ways, like at city commission meetings, the things that we do that are outside of the weekend entertainment. That is important, because as I've heard multiple times from multiple leaders in Palm Beach County, that corporations are drawn and residents are drawn to a locality, not just for the beach, which is great and amazing here, not just for the hometown feel like a Delray has, but also because of the vibrant arts and culture scene. And so it brings new people to the community who help support the tax base and all those economic things. But in addition, we never forget the community when we're doing our work. So we have a senior series that pushes programming outside of our walls into 5 senior centers in Palm Beach County, 2 or 3 of which are working with Alzheimer and dementia patients who could not otherwise attend a show safely. We have the family series where we do 4 shows a year for elementary students, sometimes middle and high. And they come for field trips for free. It doesn't cost the school anything, and they get exposed to things they would have likely never seen. Or the, what's the other one? There's one more. But there are multiple, the AIR series, Artists in Residence, where seniors, veterans, and college students can get a free ticket to an amazing show if there's an extra seat. We do a lot of things, and it's a way to provide an opportunity for almost... My goal is everyone. My goal is that you will find something that will trigger engagement for you, that will make you want to be part of what we're doing, because I believe in it that much. And I think you have to kind of spread it out so that people can find their way. Not everybody wants to be a board member, but they might want to volunteer. Or maybe they can't volunteer and they don't want to be a board member, but they'd like to come and see some of the shows that we do for our Artist in Residence series. Or I think it's just a really cool thing. And I don't think you could watch anything. If you came to our volunteer party last night, you would have seen Grooving with Karen happening, where 50 volunteers were dancing, doing a movement class. You know, if you come to a family series, you see 300 kids in the room engaging with a theater piece on the stage. I'm proud of what we do, right?
Me too.
And it's through the work we do together that allows for it. I'm very proud of it.
Completely agree.
Absolutely.
What else do you want to tell people? Because we're at the magic hour, so I want to try to wind it up. But before I close this out, is there anything else that you would want to say, or did you get it all out?
I think that people listening to this, if you haven't been to the Arts Garage, you need to look on the calendar and find something that speaks to you and check it out. There's every reason to participate and come and enjoy.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah. And my closing thoughts would be to the segment of the population that probably won't respond to that so much, but because there is, and let's admit, there is a segment of the population that will listen to this podcast or that will see the Arts Garage calendar or see what's going on and say, yeah, that's not for me. Why would I ever support that? That's, they shouldn't have funding. Leave these people, to heck with them or whatever. But to that segment of the population, I would just remind them that it's not just about the programming or the culture or the arts. It's about supporting the surrounding businesses and the community. Those shows don't just bring revenue to the Arts Garage. It doesn't just drive a cultural perspective of whoever's speaking or performing that night. It's bringing revenue to the restaurants that are in the area.
Absolutely.
It's bringing revenue to the hotels in the area where people are coming in from out of town to go to a show. It's bringing revenue to the people who work the jobs in the area so that they can spend that money on other places in the community. So it's actually supporting arts and culture might be the most pro-business, pro-economic thing you can actually do. or at least you could certainly argue that. So to the segment that wants to shut down the talk about this because it's just not for you, well, maybe creating opportunities for others, creating business, growing the economy is for you. And if that's the case, then I think you should look at it from that perspective and support it as well.
It sounds to me like you've been talking to Kelly Smallridge at the Business Development Board, because that's pretty much what she says, you know? And she uses Delray as one of the key places that she tours potential businesses through to show them how incredible it can be to live in a place like this. Like, you walk to everything we do. You live close enough that you can walk. Of course, you like to walk. I would not walk from that far, but you do. And I think it's wonderful. You know, you can live in a place and have an intimate experience in your town right under your nose that can refill your glass, right? It can refill your glass.
Well, as my husband always says, you know, he gets so tired of just going out for dinner.
Right.
And anytime we can have an experience,
right,
we'll choose it every time. And coming to the Arts Garage is always a great experience. There are people in my building that I live with who love the comedians, who love the jazz. They, you know, the appeal to all the walks of life and all ages is really, like Steve said, like you would say, oh, I didn't really even think that I would, you know, that even existed here, that I could be exposed to this kind of music in my little town. And you're bringing everyone in. And it just, it makes for a wonderful, rich experience here. It's not always just about going out for dinner, although it's important, but it's a great night out.
It is. And I agree with the experience thing, because I've stopped buying, for the most part, presents for my kids. We do things. We go to a ball game, or we go to a concert or something like that. I think it is meaningful. And I think people are starting to recognize that a little. I can't thank you both enough for joining me today. I know you have busy lives, and I appreciate you making the time to do it. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
This was amazing. Thank you.
Glad you were here.
Thank you, Marjorie.
For those of you listening, if you would follow, like, subscribe, make a comment, leave a review to the podcast, that helps us beat the algorithm. And we would love to have more people listening to the brilliant things that our guests say. If you have an idea for a guest or a topic, you can email us at info@artsgarage.org and just put Culture Under Fire idea, and it'll get to me. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I hope to see you soon.